Hello. Okay, today I want to talk about my childhood because of what I'm doing, because I'm a yoga teacher. Lots of people assume that I've always been really sporty and full of energy, flexible, energetic, that sort of thing. But it is actually very different. My childhood was completely different from what people imagine, and often people get surprised that when I start telling about my childhood. So today I thought I would just go back the history and tell you what I was as a child. So I was born in Japan, and I was born with congenital dislocation of the hip. So apparently it's quite a common thing, but as the name suggests, I was born with dislocation of the hip. And I had to wear a removable cast for the first few years of my life. And I think it was quite difficult because I was I was newborn and it was getting hot in Japan. I was born in spring. So wearing a cast was quite an uncomfortable thing for children. And my parents didn't like it, but the hospital said I would be left with lifelong limp if I don't wear them. So I had to wear it. And so I think that set the tone for my childhood, for my parents. So from the time I was born, my parent had this worrying about my health was quite the main thing for my parents. So that set the tone for my childhood, and I had numerous hospital visit and the doctor's visit as I was growing up, and lots of them are quite minor, but I remember I had a mum, there's a picture of me wearing these white things around my face, which is rare these days because of the thanks to the vaccination, childhood vaccination. And so I had lots of numerous health issues. And when I was, I think, 4 or 5, so before I started school, I spent about a month in the hospital because they found out my kidney wasn't functioning very well. So I had a kidney problem. And in those days, maybe it's still the same in Japan, but definitely in those days in Japan, parents were not allowed to stay. So they visit during the day, but at night they had to come home. So it was really quite a traumatic experience for a small kid under the age of 5 to spend about a month in the hospital without parents. So that was really quite difficult time for me, and I think for my parents, it was quite difficult time for them. Then when I was about 10, 11, I had another health problem, and this time I had a heart problem. It started off from me fainting in a school assembly, and they discovered my heart wasn't functioning as it had to. So for about 2 years, for about a few months, I didn't go to school. Then I was on and off. Often I was only allowed to go to school in the morning and had to come home, spend rest of the afternoon resting, lying down. And after that period of quite an inactive time, I wasn't allowed to do any sports. Even if when I was back to school, I wasn't allowed to do any sports, any PE, wasn't allowed to participate in any school trips. And when you're around the age of 10, 11, so there are lots of school trips and residentials. I couldn't do any of these, and I wasn't even allowed to go and play outside. So I had a really quite a restricted couple of years when I was last 2 years of my primary school. But miraculously, by the time I started the secondary school, my health problem resolved itself without any major intervention. There was even a talk about me being fitted with pacemaker in the heart, but they didn't go ahead, and it was a good thing they didn't go ahead because I didn't need it in the end. So all this health issue resolved, and I started leading normal life. But by then I had completely lost physical confidence. So although I did PE, I wasn't really good at anything. I wasn't good at sports. I wasn't good at running. I couldn't swim. I wasn't good at ball sport. So I was a happy, normal kid. But I wasn't one of these popular kids who's really good at sports, winning things for the sport, chosen for the teams, running and getting trophies. I wasn't like that at all. And lots of my friends joined sports club in those days, but I chose to join choir. And as I grew up to be the sort of a young person who would rather spend time in the libraries, reading. When I was a little older, I would rather go to cinemas, spend the Sunday afternoon in dark cinemas, watching international films. That sort of a person I grew up to. So I really wasn't the outdoor type at all. So by then I was well enough to do lots of things, and I was allowed to do everything. But it's really more of my psyche was set in a way that, well, I didn't have any confidence in my physical ability. So I didn't choose to do any sporty things. I didn't really want to exert myself and take up challenging activities. And that was my childhood and teenage years, and really even early 20s. I was the sort of person who's not really interested in sports, and rather I identify myself more cultural, arty person. That's how I sort of identify myself. So today I'm sharing my childhood because lots of people think I have always been very sporty, always been very fit, always sort of interested in the physical things. And actually, I'm not like that at all. And this just really came later on. I started doing ballet when I was adult, when I moved to London in mid-20s. And that really was the beginning of me started doing the physical things. And that led me to yoga. Then they just took off from there. So this is today's installment, and I'll tell you a little bit more about my background in my next Facebook Live, next installment. Okay, thank you for listening to my personal story. See you next time.